Again, my name is Garner. I am not only a full-time worker and an advocate and a caregiver, I am a mom to a 9-year-old son who is wonderful and a 12-year-old daughter who is simply fantastic. And so many things that have been said today I could have said. And so that leaves me the ability to really get personal with you, which I think in my own way will help make a difference. Thank God I do not have to remember any of those statistics because I don't have a mathematical mind. Jim and I met when he was 34, and we got married when he was 35. He's 8 years older than me, and he was in the Air Force, and we were very blessed to have the ability to travel a little bit, and after a few years, we started a family. And I noticed that Jim was not the same Jim. He was a senior master sergeant in the Air Force, and he was very military, very black and white. And he was also very good with money, direction, and knew a lot. He was much, much smarter than I was. One day, we were driving down the street with our children, and one of them said, "How do they determine the speed limit?" Jim quickly quipped to them before I could say anything based on the number of potholes. And this was several years before we got him diagnosed. And as you can imagine, having young kids, we're driving down the road, we're in a marriage, we've been arguing a little bit lately, and I just look at him and I'm like, "What are you talking about? No, they have to have a speed limit before there ever even is the first pothole." So we proceed to get in an argument in front of the kids. And this continued for several years before the MRI scan, the PET scan, the blood test, the neuropsychological testing, before everything could rule out any other kind of medical problem that he could have. So it was actually a very long process to get him diagnosed, and that is one of the things I like to fight for when I go to Capitol Hill as an advocate, is streamlining that process, because as you can imagine, one of the worst parts of having a medical condition is the waiting. Whether it's cancer or a heart attack even, a stroke, when you're sitting there waiting for results or you're waiting to see what that medicine is going to do or if it's going to make a difference, you just go crazy. Well, with Alzheimer's, we go see the doctor. I tell him what I think, and by the way, I think it has not been mentioned today, but I think it's very important that doctors are taught not only to go ahead and start diagnosing this, but they need to talk to the caregiver, the care partner, by themselves. I had this happen at the NIH, and it was like a breath of fresh air, because when we go see Jim's neurologist, Jim's sitting next to me, and how insulting and demeaning is it when I start talking about the things that are declining in Jim in front of him, because it just brings it all out to the center. And so I think that's something that we really need to bring to the forelight. We finally got Jim diagnosed, really because it runs in his family. I'm sorry. His mom passed away from it, and his brother passed away from it at the age of 52. Jim is 51. And although he's in the early stages, and I know what's coming, I am in a porcelain sink, grasping at the side with nothing to hold on to, knowing I'm going down into that drain financially, emotionally, and physically. I know what happens to caregivers. I know what happens to people when they cannot handle this. But I have to handle it not just for Jim. It's more than putting him in a home. It's watching my kids watch their father not know them and disappear, and not react when they tell them that they love him. So I'm trying to figure out how to save for their college, how to save for his care,
how to keep our house, how to keep my job, and how to keep my sanity. And the only thing I can do is speak out and use my words and to use my ability to help others that are going through the same thing and will go through the same thing. And my kids, I hope, will one day look back and know that their mom did everything she could to make it different for them by the time they are 48. That's my age, 48. That's when Jim's mom started showing signs, and that's when his brother got diagnosed, and that's when he got diagnosed. My daughter is 12 and my son is 9, and I need a cure.
Karen kind of passed over this briefly, but she still works full-time even though she's doing all of this. And I hate to be the person to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. When it's just you and the kids, how do you explain this to them so they understand, but they can still love their father who's maybe not the person that they knew?
That's actually a really good question. For me, fortunately, I am so blessed to have very mature, very smart, and very adaptable children. And I think a lot of that goes to the fact that we have very open communication. Jim's family, unfortunately, did not talk about it, and they had a very dysfunctional family. I have tried to learn from that. So from almost the beginning, we have been open and honest with them. And we have tried to keep that stigma from coming into our home. We talk to our friends. We do interviews. We have been in our local newspaper. We've been in Time magazine. And I try not to hide my frustration with Jim. Another thing that really hasn't been mentioned today, and one thing I am not proud of, but I think it needs to be said, is the frustration that comes with dealing with somebody, especially I think in the early stages. And it brings a whole level of guilt to me because I get so frustrated with him. I get frustrated with him in front of the kids. And so I have that open communication with them, like, oh, I shouldn't have said that to Daddy. I am so upset with myself, but I hope you understand this is why. And so I do. So I have to be honest with you as well. When I'm alone with the kids, we have a great time. It's usually very relaxing. And it's funny you say this. Not too long ago, we were having a wonderful time, and I did bring up Jim, and my daughter, my 12-year-old, said, oh, Mom, when we're having such a good time, why do you always have to bring up Dad and Alzheimer's? Can't we just have fun? So maybe I talk about it too much, so I'm going to have to work on that. But I think open communication is key, not for all of that we're talking about with advocacy and removing the stigma, but keeping a healthy family together.
To reach out and ask people for help and to realize that when they offer help, you need to take it. It's been very difficult for me. I've had several friends that have pointed out to me, Karen, if we were in the same situation, you would be one of the first ones to help us. So what you need to do is let us help you because that's what we want to do. So accept that help and speak out. You know, I can't do this by myself. Yes, I'm a younger onset family, but you know what? So are so many other people, and their voices need to be heard. I think they need support. I think they need education. I think they need understanding because it becomes a complete, overwhelming responsibility to make all of the decisions in your family, financially, emotionally, physically. They are just overwhelmed and they need somebody that can come along and help them with those burdens.